Thank you, President. My question is for the Attorney-General, Ms Symes, in her capacity representing the Premier. And thank you. And relates to the Lord's Prayer. In the last term of Parliament, on 4th of August 2021, you gave an undertaking to this chamber that a Labor government, if re-elected at the beginning of the next term and as part of the consideration of changes to standing and sessional orders, will commit to workshopping a replacement model that is purpose-fit for Victoria. It is certainly our feeling that the model should be consistent across both Houses of Parliament and not just the Legislative Council. My question simply is, has that workshopping occurred and is the replacement model imminent? And if not, what is the timeframe to progress this important question of principle?
Minister.
Thank you, President. I thank Mr Ettershank for his question, and I agree with Ms Crozier. There's borderline in relation to whether it relates to the general order, but because you have said my words back at me, I feel it's appropriate to respond to those. Indeed, it was a commitment that I gave in the last government to workshop potential replacements for the Lord's Prayer. We know that it's a vastly different chamber and a vastly different community from 100 years ago, from when the Lord's Prayer was established. I know that there is... Mr Davis is an expert in relation to the history of this. And more than 100 years. And Mr Davis is always very useful in relation to talking about the tradition of this chamber. And of course, tradition is important. But look, I reiterate that commitment. It is something that has been raised with me from a number of members in this chamber, from a variety of parties. I think it is not a matter for the government. It's not a matter for the executive. It is a matter for this chamber and a matter for the other chamber. I concur that I think consistency is appropriate, and I'm sure many people in this chamber would have a view, and I'm certainly happy to collate that and come up with a proposal following those discussions across the way. It is a commitment that is not yet met, so I stand by that commitment.
Mr.
No, David, no.
Mr. Ettershank on a supplementary.
Thank you, President, and I thank the Minister for her response. After the Lord's Prayer, we pay our respects to the traditional owners of these lands. This seems to me rather arse about and somewhat less than respectful, and that it would be more appropriate that we pay our respects first. Could the Minister advise whether this question has been considered previously and whether this can be included in the consultative process that has been foreshadowed?
Well, Order. Just warn Mr Ettershank about his use of words in the chamber, but maybe unparliamentary. But I'll put the question... I'll put the supplementary question to the Minister.
Thank you, President. Mr Ettershank, that is a point well made, and I think would be something that is worthy of conversation in relation to where we might land on this as a chamber.